The company ruled 1773 to 1858. The Crown ruled 1858 to 1947. Governing body of the company. The report on is the revenue, civil and military affairs in India. Amending Act of 1781. The features of this act were as follows: it exempt the Governor General and the Council from the jurisdiction of the Supreme Court. Act by the servant of the Council from the jurisdiction of the Supreme Court. The acts Supreme Court for the opposite action. It excluded the regular and the liberalizing the connection of revenue from the jurisdiction of the Supreme Court. Jurisdiction of the Supreme Court. It allowed the Supreme Court jurisdiction of the Its Indian Act of 1784. The next important act was the Peace Indian Act of 1784. The features of this is the following features always employed distinguish between commercial and political function of the company. It distinguishes between the commercial and political function of the company. It allows the board of directors to manage the commercial affairs. It that allows the board of directors to manage the commercial affairs, but the create a new body or board of control to manage the political affairs, but created a new body or board of control to manage the political affairs. Thus, it established a system of the double government. Thus, a system that government thus it established the system of the double government. It imparted the board of control. It imparted the board of control to the supervise and direct all the operation of the civil and the military government. Revenue of the British position in India. Act of 1786. The Act of 1786. In 1787, Lord Cornwallis was the appointed as the Governor General of Bengal. In 1786, the Lord Cornwallis was appointed as the Governor General of Bengal. The village to demand to accept that post where he should be given power to the override the decision of his council in the special case. He should be given the power to override the decision of his council in the special cases. He would also be the commander-in-chief according to the Act of 1786. The Act of 1786 was enacted to make for the convention. Charter Act of 1793. The research of this act is from the research of this act, where it's from that's the public. I want to carry out controlling distances. It can over the government with the subordinates. The presidencies of the government and plus the presidencies of the with the extended trade monopoly of the company in India for another period of 20 years. It extended the trade monopoly from the company in India for another period of 20 years. It provided that the commander-in-chief was not to be a member of the Governor-General Council unless he was so appointed. Whether they counted the member of the board of control and their estate were henceforth to be the paid out of the Indian revenues. It that counted the members of the board of control and their estate were the henceforth to be paid out of the Indian Charter Act of 1830. The features of this act were as follows: it abolished the trade monopoly of the company in India, that is, the Indian trade was thrown open to all British merchants. It abolished the trade monopoly of the company in India, that is, the Indian trade was thrown open to all the British merchants. However, it continued the monopoly of the company over trade in tea and trade with China. However, in the continuing of the company over the tea and trade with China, it asserted the sovereignty of the British crown over the company territory. It recognized sovereignty of the British crown over the company territories in India. It allowed the Christian missionaries to come to India for the purpose of the enlightening the people, enlightening the providence of the spirit of Islamisation among the inhabitants of the British territory in India. It authorized the local government in India to impose taxes on the persons who also the punish the persons for not paying taxes. It authorized the local government in India to impose taxes on the persons and also the punish the persons for not paying taxes. Charter Act of 1833. This act was the final step toward the centralization in British India. This that was the final step toward the centralization of British India. The features of this act were as follows. It made the Governor General of Bengal as the Governor General of India. These rules and business there. It made the Governor General of Bengal as the Governor General of India and the best state in him all civil and military power. Vested in all civil and military powers. Thus, the act that created for the first time government of India having the authority over the territory areas that possessed by the British in India. Lord William Bentinck was the first Governor General of India. Lord William Bentinck was the first Governor General of India. Lord William Bentinck was the first Governor General of India. It deprived the Governor of Bombay and Madras of their legislative power. It deprived the Governor of Bombay and Madras of their legislative power. The Governor General of India was given the exclusive legislative power for the Indian British Empire. The law made under the Prevision Act were called as regulation, while law made under this act were called as Act. Deprived the Governor of Bombay and Madras of their legislative power. The Governor General of India was given exclusive legislative power for the entire British India. The law made under the previous act were called as regulation, while law made under this act were called as Act. It ended the activities of the East Indian Company as a commercial body. It ended the activities of the East Indian Company as a commercial body, which became a purely administrative body. It provided that the company's territories in India were held by it in the trust for His Majesty is the heir and successor. The Charter Act of 1833, the attempt to introduce the system of open competition for the selection of the civil servant, and the standard the Indians should not be debarred from the holding any place office and employment under the company. However, this provision was neglected after the positions from the Board of Directors. Board of Directors. The Charter Act of 1833, the attempt to introduce a system of open competition for the selection of the civil servant, and the stat that Indians should not be debarred. Indians should not be debarred from the holding any places, office and employment under the company. However, this the provision was neglected after opposition from the Board of Directors. Charter Act of 1853. This was the last of the series of the Charter Act, the passed by the British Parliament between the 1793 and 1853. It was a significant constitutional landmark. It was a significant constitutional landmark. The features of this act were as follows. It is separate for the first time the legislative and executive function of the Governor General Council. It provided for the additions of the six new members called the Legislative Councillor to the Council. In the other word, it The established a separate Governor-General Legislative Council, which came to be known as the Indian Central Legislative Council. This legislative wing of the council functioned as the mini parliament, adopting the same procedures as the British Parliament. Thus, the legislation for the first time was treated as the special function of the government, requiring the special machinery and the special forces. It introduced the competitive system of the selection and the recruitment of the civil servant. The convention to the civil servant was thus thrown into the Indian also. According the Macaulay Committee, the Committee on the Indian Civil Service was adopted in 1854. Indian Civil Servant ICS was appointed in 1854. They extended the company rule and allowed it to retain the position of the Indian territories on trust for the British Crown. Trust for the British Crown, but it did not specify any particular period, unlike the previous. Unlike the previous charter, this was a clear indication that the company rule would be terminated at any times the Parliament lie. It introduced for the first time the local representation in Indian Central Legislative Council of the six new legislative members of the Governor General Council. Four members were appointed by the local provincial government of Madras, Bombay, and Bengal and Agra. This is the four member is the participant and first is the Madras, Bombay, Bengal, and Agra. Yes, British. The British came to India in 1608 as the data in the uh, form of East Indian Company, which had the exclusive right of the trading in Indian under a charter granted by the Queen Elizabeth I in 1600. In the 1765, the company, which still now had the purely trading function, obtained the Diwani, that is the right over revenue and the civil justice of Bengal, Bihar and Odisha. This stated it is the career as the territorial power. In the 1858, in the wake of the Sipahi mutiny, the British Crown assumed direct the responsibility for the governance of India. This rule continued until the India was granted independence on August 15, 1947. With independence came the need for the constitution, hence the Constituent Assembly was formed for this purpose in 1946, and on January 26, uh, 1950, the Constitution came into the being. However, the various features of the Indian Constitution and the polity have their root in the British rule. Therefore, the certain again the British rule that led the legal framework for the organization and functioning of the government and the administration in British India. These even have the greatly influence over the constitution and polity. They were explained here in the chronological order under two major headings. The company rule 1773 to 1758. The Crown Rule 1858 to 1947. The company ruled 1773 to 1858. The Regulating Act of 1773. This act was of the great constitutional importance as it was the first step taken by the British government to the control and regul- regulate the affair of the East Indian Company in India. It recognized for the first time the political and administrative function of the company, and it lacked the functions of the central administration in India.